New data from the Federal Reserve shows the average American's finances are actually doing okay during the economic recovery following the coronavirus pandemic, but it isn't the same across the board. Income inequality is still a big problem for minorities and those who are less educated. NBC News senior business reporter Ben Popkin is with us now to talk about this. So, Ben, first of all, explain where these numbers come from and what the biggest takeaway is from them. Were you surprised to see that people's finances, that at least for many people, didn't take more of a hit?
Well, the data comes from a survey of consumer finances, which is sponsored by the Federal Reserve, the Central Bank of America. They interview thousands of families about their finances and the demographic information. So if you're looking at these numbers and you're seeing people with college degrees are up 22.5 trillion in terms of household assets since the pandemic began, while those without college degrees are down 10 billion. White families, their households' total asset wealth is up 25 trillion, while blacks are only up 1.5 trillion, and Hispanics up 600 billion. You might be surprised that these numbers didn't take bigger hits, but have to remember that households tend to bring up these averages. Those households, a small number who own assets. The stock market was on a monster tear last year, despite the pandemic, and those are bringing up some of these numbers. But I think that the biggest takeaway is not the numbers themselves, but the difference between the levels. You can see that there's this lift off in the value for those households with college degrees and whites, while the others are flat. So the economy, even though in fits and starts, is rebounding. But what this shows is that minorities, those with less education, they're not going to participate in that recovery, and that's going to put them further behind as we go down the road.
I mean, yeah, Ben, these numbers remind us of the big structural inequalities in society. How did the pandemic exacerbate these?
Right. Well, I mean, taking a step back a minute, redlining, which was a practice decades ago of explicitly not lending to borrowers in minority concentrated neighborhoods, exclusion from investment, not being allowed to participate in the GI Bill. These are institutionalized practices that segregated wealth and opportunity in the country. It started decades ago, and they've had compounding impact on Black, Hispanic, disadvantaged groups for generations. The pandemic didn't change this, and because of those structural inequalities, those who were already ahead, folks with a house, equity, job, they were positioned to take even greater share of the gains as the economy has recovered. I mean, just look at how stimulus spending was used. Those households that were doing well, they were able to use it for savings and investment, those stimulus payments. Those at the bottom of the level, they used it to pay for groceries and keep the lights on. Not a lot of time left for asset accumulation.
Ben, any sign that things may change and we can start to try and close this inequality gap?
Well, there's theory that public spending can help redress some of these harms in the private market. Upcoming infrastructure bill, trillions thrown for Biden's domestic policy agenda. That's looking to attack this from a lot of different angles. We're looking at free community college, more access to Medicare, and increased taxes on those who are at the top of the income ladder. That can help narrow some of these gaps.
Of course, Democrats still have to try and get that big plan through. All right, Ben, thanks so much. Appreciate your reporting.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.